Welcome to the Student Affairs One Thing, a podcast that asks a simple question of seasoned student affairs professionals. What is one thing you have learned that has helped shape your professional career? I'm your host, Stuart Brown, the developer of studentaffairs.com, one of the most accessed websites by student affairs professionals. On our pages, we have the most cost-effective job posting board, listing hundreds of open student services positions and a wide range of webinars. On today's episode, I am very pleased to have Dr. Jim Hoppe, Vice President and Dean for Campus Life at Emerson College. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jim, what is your one thing?
I've thought about this a lot, and I think my one thing is to not underestimate the power of the small stuff. By that, I mean the things we do every day that sometimes we just take for granted. And it can be easy to fall into this line of thinking that it's only the big grand gestures or the things that come out of a months-long committee that are going to have a positive impact. But I learned early on that sometimes the things I do without even thinking about it, I just do as part of my everyday routine, have this lasting impact on a student that I never even really realized.
So I can't wait to hear the story behind that one thing.
I learned this early on in my career. And I was an RA as an undergrad at the University of New Mexico back in the 80s, did a lot of the typical RA things. And our football team resided on one floor of our building. And at that time, we didn't have a very good football team. They were struggling a lot, and it wasn't unusual for the guys on the team to come back tired or have a long practice or after a particularly tough loss and not be in a good mood. So that was, an experience I had as an RA was, sometimes having to interact and sometimes write up or have interactions with the football team. So fast forward, my first professional job after grad school, I was living in Chicago, and I'm out one night with a couple friends, a bar someplace in Chicago, and I feel this tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and I look up, and there's this big mountain of a guy, and he says, "You went to the University of New Mexico, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're Jim Hoppe. You were an RA in Hakona Hall, weren't you?" And I'm thinking, do I answer yes? Because it's hard to come back to me, He goes, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." He goes, "I was on the football team." And in my head, I'm like looking for my friends because I'm thinking I'm about to get pounded because I figured I probably wrote this guy up one time or caused him to have to do extra laps at practice. And, he's been waiting all these years to get revenge. And so I said, "Yeah, that's me." And he goes, "I just wanted to thank you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And so it turns out one night I was doing rounds and his door was open and I just popped in and said hello or chatted for a minute. And he'd been having a really tough time, illness in his family and unsure about his place on the team and some relationship issues. And I guess we chatted for 10, 15 minutes or so. And it really had an impact on him. He talked about how it just made him feel seen and that it kind of reminded him they had a place on campus and that there were people that were looking out for him. And I didn't remember this guy from Adam. I didn't remember this interaction. I had no memory of it. It was just something I did as part of my daily routine. And that has always stuck with me, that things we do make a difference, right? And the little things can have this positive impact. And so it's this reminder to, always try to be present and to just remember that every interaction, try to be respectful, think about what you're doing, understand that the people you're interacting with are going to take something from you just doing your job and doing things that probably just come natural to you.
That's a great story. And it really, I think, demonstrates in our field how you don't always know. And if you didn't have that interaction, you never would have known this. You never would have known the difference. And I think that probably is what happens most of the time. We don't bump into people again, or even 1 year, 10 years, 20 years later. So I think what you said about being present is so important because we don't know. We rarely will get that type of feedback.
And I'm sure, like most of us, every so often we get these cards or notes or emails now from students, and they start with, "You probably don't remember this, but," and so it's just been reinforced time and time again throughout my career that the little things make a difference, and being there for people counts, even when you don't even realize you're doing.
I think it also shows you have to really be confident in yourself because you're not going to get that feedback. That
Right.
It's rare to get that. And we get cards. I mean, nowadays, it's probably an email, who knows, maybe even a text. "Hey, thanks, you made a difference. LOL," or whatever. But, to get that card, and I know people that they save those things. In fact, I retired and I have a folder in a file cabinet with cards and things going back, goodness, 20, 30 years. And I don't take them out and read them, but they're there. And it just to remind me that you do make a difference. And for whatever reason, that person wanted to let you know that.
I have the same kind of file, and it's one of the pieces of advice I give all the new staff that start is save those things, right? Take them with you because you don't get them a lot, and on those particularly bad days, it's a nice visual reminder to open that drawer and see that stack of cards or emails or whatever, and it can give you a little push to keep going.
I had a guest on season 1 of the podcast, and it was Dr. Nancy Crimmin, and she had what was called a memory box. That was her one thing. And when she was in grad school, she said her faculty member told the students to create this and, take a shoebox, maybe decorate it, but this is your box and put it on top of a file cabinet. And every time you get something, a card or you get an email, print it out and put it there. And if you're having a bad day or you just need to be cheered up, you can take down that box and just read through those to see, I guess I did make a difference.
Yeah, and the longer it takes to get those, sometimes the more powerful they are, to realize that somebody's been sitting on that for a couple of years even and took the time then to thank you.
I think when you get it years down the road, that is, to me, so powerful that this person, even though you might not have remembered them, they remembered you. They just remembered whatever you did, whatever you said was so impactful to them. And I think telling your staff, here's something you should do. And I think that goes all the way back to when you're in graduate school, because you have internships and you might be affecting students somehow, and keep that and make that part of your professional baggage is wherever I go, I'm going to keep that thing so I can refill it when needed. Jim, the last few years has been tough for student affairs professionals. We're being asked to do more with less. Do you think getting these types of notes is even maybe more important today than 10, 20 years ago?
Absolutely. All of us are feeling burnout where people are leaving and retiring early, and it can be difficult, right? To think about and remind yourself why we do this. And so that recognition of the impact we have means even more today.
Jim, I want to thank you for sharing your one thing. I think it's a great story, and I hope a lot of people listening really take it to heart because it's something that can really follow you and help you throughout your professional career. You've been listening to the Student Affairs One Thing, a podcast that asks a simple question of seasoned student affairs professionals. What is one thing you have learned that has helped shape your professional career? I want to thank today's guest, Dr. Jim Hoppe, Vice President and Dean for Campus Life at Emerson College. My name is Stuart Brown, the developer of StudentAffairs.com, one of the most accessed websites by student affairs professionals. I hope you will join us next time for another episode of the Student Affairs One Thing.